If you ask someone which Sega console they grew up with, most people will usually say the Genesis or maybe even the Dreamcast. The Master System may not be as popular or well known as some of Sega's later consoles, but this bad boy was pretty damn great in its own right. Going head to head against the NES, the Master System sold really well in places like Canada, Europe, and Brazil. It shared a number of games with the Game Gear handheld, but had a decent library of its own as well. I've been playing Master System games off and on for over 10 years now, and figure now is as good a time as any to count down the top 10 Master System games of all time. If you've been looking to check out this great 8-bit console, or just wanting to take a jaunt down memory lane, these are the games I recommend you check out. If you'd like to help this channel grow, please like, subscribe, and turn notifications to all. Now let's begin.
Number 10.
Starting at number 10, we've got the Sega Master System version of Space Harrier. Space Harrier was a very popular Sega arcade game, but one of its first home ports was on the Master System. Sure, it's got tons of slowdown, you can tell the console's having trouble with all this stuff on screen, but Space Harrier on the Master System was one of the best-selling games on the console. In fact, both my buddy DG Online and myself believe this is the easiest and most playable version of the game. Space Harrier is hard as heck, but the slowdown on the Master System version gives you a bit more time to react and get out of the way, or take out an oncoming enemy. Despite this bit of help, I'm still only able to get a few stages into the game, but it's always a blast to play.
Number 9.
Number 9 is also an incredibly difficult game, but its difficulty is matched by how fun and well done the game is. I'm not even a Batman guy, but Batman Returns on the Master System is just such a great action platformer. You can beat dudes up with your upgradable Batarang, climb and swing from buildings and ledges with your grappling hook, and even glide across gaps or down to the ground with your cape. This game also has multiple different routes you can take for each stage, giving it some great replay value. The game requires a ton of patience, however. I was not joking when I mentioned its difficulty, but even if you can only make it through the second stage, I promise you'll have a great time doing it.
Number 8.
Number 8 is another all-time arcade classic. Fantasy Zone 2 is one of my favorite shoot-'em-ups of all time. I just love the simplicity of going around shooting all the enemies and blowing up their bases while collecting cash to pay for upgrades. I love how you got the freedom to move all around each stage, as well as the size of the stages, and how each one is a different environment filled with different enemies to take down. The boss fights are fun and creative as well. I just love Fantasy Zone, and this is a fantastic 8-bit home console port of the game.
Number 7.
Rescue Mission is a great light gun game with a twist. In Rescue Mission, your job is to protect your medic as he rides the rails to rescue the multiple injured soldiers. While you're blasting away enemy troops who are looking to put an end to your rescue mission, you also have to watch out for switches so you can send your medic down the right tracks to reach the injured men. This is an incredibly fun light gun game that's a bit different from most games of its kind. The game can get a bit challenging at times, but overall is something you can just play time and again and have some fun. For breaking the mold of what a light gun game could be way back on the Master System, Rescue Mission definitely deserves its place as the 7th best Master System game of all time.
Number 6.
Special Criminal Investigation does what Rescue Mission did for light gun games, but for racing or driving games. Special Criminal Investigation is what happens when you cross something like Spy Hunter with the great driving gameplay of Outrun. In fact, this game plays better than any other racing game on the Master System, including the Master System port of Outrun. Your objective in this game is to track down a bunch of gang members' vehicles and shoot them until they can no longer drive. This gang has been involved in a number of kidnappings, so it's up to you to weave through and shoot at traffic that gets in your way until you reach the suspect's vehicle and blast it all to smithereens. We're really getting into some fantastic games now, with Special Criminal Investigation being able to hold its own against many great NES games of the time. If you've never played this one before, be sure to go back and give it a try. You will not be disappointed.
Number 5.
Double Dragon 2 on the NES was the first video game I had ever played, and might be my favorite Double Dragon game of all time. But tied with it, or coming in second, would be Double Dragon on the Sega Master System. Unlike the NES version of the original Double Dragon on the Master System allows full 2-player co-op throughout the entire game. This game really pushed the console to its limit, which results in some slowdown and flickering, but honestly, this is a great Double Dragon game to sit down and play with a friend. It's not crazy difficult either, and has a few tricks that can help you in the later stages. If you're looking for an 8-bit co-op beat-em-up game, Double Dragon on the Master System is among the best of the bunch.
Number 4.
Now we're getting into some all-time classics. Master of Darkness was basically the Master System's answer to the Castlevania series, and is honestly just as good as Castlevania 1 and 2. In Master of Darkness, you play as a psychologist named Dr. Social, who uses his Ouija board to learn that the killer vampire Dracula has been unleashed upon England. It's up to you to find out who and what's behind the murders in England, as each stage and boss is themed around both actual historical killers and horror mythology. In fact, one of the first people you track down and defeat is Jack the Ripper, who has been collecting bodies and fresh blood to be spilt as sacrificial offerings to dark forces. This game doesn't fuck around. I love how the story is told between each stage with cutscenes and dialogue, which was something that was not common at the time. This game has some great tight gameplay and is just so much more than a Castlevania clone. If you're a massive Castlevania fan like myself and are looking for something new with a fairly engaging and creative story, be sure to check out Master of Darkness for the Sega Master System.
Number 3.
I replayed Sonic Chaos very recently, and let me tell you, this game is much better than I remembered it being. I've been streaming my way through the Sonic series on my Saturday morning Twitch streams, and when I got to Sonic Chaos, I was very pleasantly surprised by it. Sonic Chaos is easily the best of the 8-bit Sonic games, with most of them being on the Master System and the Game Gear. I highly recommend playing this Master System version as it doesn't suffer from screen shrink like the Game Gear version would, but it's a great game on both systems nonetheless. It's classic Sonic gameplay with some short but sweet platforming stages. I only have 2 issues with the game, the first being the slowdown, which is honestly expected at this point. Sometimes there are so many rings and other things on screen that it makes the console begin to chug gigabytes like crazy. But I think it's worth it, because the game sports some great visuals and honestly controls really well, especially compared to most of the other Master System and Game Gear exclusive Sonic games. I think they probably could have avoided some of the slowdown if they didn't have it so every ring had the rotating animation, but I think it's worth it to have that. It just makes it look more like a proper Sonic game. My other gripe is that you only drop a few rings when you get hit. I think the most you can drop is 5, but you need a shitload of rings on hand to even drop that many. Most boss fights come down to you getting hit, getting 1 or 2 rings back, then getting hit again, and only being able to recover a single ring. This definitely added a challenge to some of the boss fights, but overall I understand the reason for this, and it wasn't too much of an issue as most boss fights can be beaten once you figure out how to ride them like a mad bull. All in all, Sonic Chaos isn't just one of my favorite Master System games, but also one of my favorite Sonic games of all time as well. If you're looking for an essential Master System or Game Gear game to go back and play, this is one you won't want to miss.
Number 2.
There are so many great Ninja Gaiden games, especially on 8-bit consoles, but I honestly think that Ninja Gaiden on the Master System is the best of the bunch. That's right, Ninja Gaiden on the Sega Master System is my favorite Ninja Gaiden game of all time. I finished it for the first time earlier this year when I played through all the classic Ninja Gaiden games, and after getting through all the great NES games and the lackluster Game Gear game, this version was an absolute treat to play. Taking place years before the NES games, in the Master System game, Ryu Hayabusa is facing off against local foes in Japan as he tracks down whoever massacred his village and tries to get back this sacred Bushido scroll that was stolen. The game has some awesome stages and great but tough boss fights. Like in the NES games, it also has some pretty good cutscenes in between the stages to flesh out its story. This was also the first Ninja Gaiden game to include rapid wall jumping, while also having the ability to grab onto and climb the ledges above you like in Ninja Gaiden 3 on the NES. It also has some of the best Nimbo abilities in the entire franchise, with this 4 fireballs power being incredibly OP if you use it right. For being one of the best 8-bit action platformers of all time, Ninja Gaiden 2 is the second best game that the Master System has to offer.
Number 1.
Anyone who's a fan of the Master System knew this game was going to be on here but wasn't sure where. Well, considering I'm a massive JRPG fan, especially when it comes to the classics, the original Phantasy Star just had to be number 1 on the list. I recently played through and finished this for the first time ever live on stream, and I've gotta say, this game was so far ahead of its time. Coming out only 2 days after the original Final Fantasy, Phantasy Star had bright, vibrant colors, a great and tragic story, with decently fleshed out characters who had their own spells and abilities. The game also takes place between 3 different planets that you can fly between on your spaceship. The dungeons can be a bit much without a map to help you keep track of where you've been and where you should go, but the battles are great and the dungeons vast. I was so impressed with this game's world, story, and characters, and can't wait to eventually play the Genesis Phantasy Star games in the future. I love how every NPC in each town has a bit of useful dialogue, how much inventory space you actually have, and how you get your own different vehicles to traverse the multiple different planets with. This is an incredible, fun, quirky, classic 8-bit JRPG, and dare I say, one of the best. I highly recommend checking out the Sega Ages version on the Switch, which has a self-drawing and filling map built into it. It'll make exploring dungeons much less tedious, but for those of you old school JRPG guys, get yourself some graph paper and create your own maps if that's your thing. Either way, this is a very highly recommended classic JRPG that should be played by any fan of the classics like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. This is why it sits atop the heap as the number 1 greatest Sega Master System game of all time. If you're enjoying the video and would like to help me grow my channel, before we get to some honorable mentions, please like, subscribe, and turn notifications to all. Also, let me know some of your favorite Master System games in the comments below. You can also check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/Dookie03 if you want to come hang out live while I play through some great JRPGs and some fantastic retro games as well. For honorable mentions, I like to start with one of the best 8-bit light gun games ever in Operation Wolf. This was a great arcade classic that didn't port so well to the NES. The Master System version, however, is really well done, and you'll have a blast blowing the enemies away. Another great light gun game is Rambo 3. If you ever wanted to blast countless enemies away as Rambo, this is the game for you. Unfortunately, my light phasers are both pretty hit and miss on whether they want to work or not lately, so I haven't been able to play these 2 games in quite some time. But they are super fun light gun games nonetheless. And the final game I'd like to mention is of course the original home console, Shinobi. This game is pretty damn good, but is hard as nails once you get past the first 2 stages. It's a bunch of fun while it lasts, but it was just too damn hard to put on my actual top 10. The fun to difficulty ratio was just too off-putting. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day, and if you'd like, check out some of my other top 10 videos here on my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.